Mr. Chairman, we are live.
All right, let's start with my prepared reading. So my name's Todd Helwig. I am Chair of the White Cliffs Commission, and this open meeting of the White Cliffs Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the town of Northborough has been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of the White Cliffs Commission are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the White Cliffs Commission to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. And with that, why don't we have a roll call to see who is here. So I am here as the chair. Norm?
I'm here.
Julianne?
Here.
Diana?
Here.
And Tom? Don't believe Tom is here.
Tom
is here.
Oh, Tom's here. All right. So we have a full house. Let's turn then to the agenda. The first item being the minutes from February 5th. Does anybody have any comments on the minutes? If no one has any comments on the minutes, would anybody like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of February 5th?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the February 5th, 2020 minutes as written.
I'll second.
All right, was that Norm?
Yeah.
All right, so Julianne has a motion to approve them. Norm has seconded them. Let's go through a roll call to approve those. Norm?
Yes.
Julianne?
Yes, and I'd just like to say that they were written in a great format. It was very clear about what we had discussed. So thank you to whoever did that.
Thank you. All right. Diana?
Yes.
And Tom, you were not here, so I don't believe you're going to vote on that. I vote in favor, so that carries. The minutes are approved. Then I believe we're going to go over and turn it over to John for his update.
Okay, so it's been a while since we've met. The pandemic put a hold on many boards and committees. Unfortunately, White Cliffs was one of those. We were scheduled to meet, I believe, at the end of March, and so that's all been delayed. And we are just getting back on track. So we have an update for you today. The purpose of today's meeting is kind of a jump start to get back to meeting regularly and to get back to the work that needs to be done on the committee. So today we have an update for you regarding the building envelope improvements. One positive thing regarding the pandemic is we were able to get some additional work done on the structure that was prohibitively costly prior. So we're able to engage some local contractors and get a few things done. I think you're going to be very happy with. And I want to give credit to Scott Charpentier, DPW director, who's on this call, who took the lead and spearheaded getting that work done. The other thing we want to do is give an update where we are with regard to the budget, and then talk about moving forward with the reuse plan. So when we posted the agenda, we weren't sure the status of the final report, and DBVW, the architects, their main consultant is not available today. So one of the things we'll need to do is we're going to pick a date and we will get the draft that they have completed out to everybody. And And then they will come in at a meeting in a couple of weeks, make a full presentation on that. But I think we have a lot to kind of go through today to tee that up, and a few discussions that need to take place before we bring them in for their presentation. So they won't be here today, although we had tentatively had them on the agenda. I'm not sure if they were going to be able to make that. So backing up, I'm actually going to turn, through the chair, turn it over to Scott to review the recent projects that he's been able to advance and get completed up at White Cliffs. I think you're going to be very pleased at the work and very pleased at the price point at which we're able to get this stuff done. There are some upsides to recessions, and this will be one of them. So, with that, through the chair, I would turn it over to Scott.
Thank you, John. So as John indicated, we were able to chip away at the original scope of work that was put together and bid out, which received unfavorable bids. So the first was a DCAM emergency cert that was issued to us. So we were allowed to bid out we were allowed to get pricing for the roof replacement solely without procuring through the street. DCAM gave us a waiver from that requirement. We solicited pricing from numerous roofing contractors. The most competitive and reasonable price was actually from a local Northborough roofing contractor who went, ironically enough, when we did the site visit, is the one who installed the roof that he was replacing. So he knew the structure very well. He had family events there. You know, his daughter's graduation party was there. He loves the building. It was a nice marriage of local contractor with historic structure. He came in, assessed the roof. We gave him the specifications from the architect. He fully complied with that. The architect was involved during the construction phase, observing the work, answering questions. He uncovered some of that charred timber, was able to replace it. In addition, there was some repair work that was done along the interface between the historic structure and the old rubber roof on the additions. He completed the work before the winter set in this year. The total cost of the project was $94,100 to get the roof replaced. So he's happy, we're happy. It worked out great. There's a simple photograph in the report, but if you go by, you can see it's a job well done. I've been in the structure many times since, and there are no more puddles or 5-gallon buckets collecting rainwater dripping in. He was able to salvage the large skylight and reflash the entire thing. So that is watertight as well. One of the other tasks that was bid out and subsequently not awarded was construction of some storage crates for the historic stained glass windows that are stored over in Worcester. We found a local carpenter who's done some work in and around town, has assisted the town in past projects. Small scale things, and I brought him out to the storage facility, showed him the stained glass windows, gave him the specifications that the architect put together. He provided a price of $4,800 to build those crates. The crates are all constructed. The windows are all set vertically with the specified insulating material between them. The crates look good. I mean, you can see in the photographs from the report, they're well built. They're on casters, so they're easy to move around. So again, it was, he's a local contractor. He's from Northborough. He was happy to help us. And he's also the one who was procured to rebuild the dormer and to seal off the historic structure from the leaking additions. Again, the architect's specs were pulled apart. Those specifications for those two pieces of work and drawings were given to the contractor. He gave us a price of $94.60 to do the work. The dormer work is probably 50% complete. He had to stop when the heat came on. He can't be walking on those new asphalt shingles in 95-degree weather. He'll end up ruining them. So he put a pause on the work. Now that things are cooling off a little bit, he'll be able to get back out there and finish the work. There has been no real surprises when it comes to that. He did take the initiative to sort of clean up the area. There was a lot of old historic moldings that were just kind of left around, and he was able to stack them up so they don't get warped. And put them in a kind of a neat fashion, label them, with post notes on where they came from. So again, the local contractor, helping us out, doing a good job, showing the level of care that I'm glad that we were able to get. There were a couple other unfortunate events that have occurred at the property. Some trees that were that fell along the back of the property that abuts Warren Drive. One tree failed, damaged a fence. A couple of the other trees were found to be in poor condition and required either removal or cabling. Those trees were removed and or cabled. And then when that work was done this past spring, a storm event came through, knocked out a small tree that took out the electrical service. So a new electrical service needed to be provided to the building. So those types of unforeseen occurrences seem to continue to be happening up there. It's just, it's an older property. There's old vegetation around it. I'm actually have a site visit this afternoon with the fire department and the fire alarm company to evaluate the current condition of the alarm and what can be done to bolster it. So again, that's where we are right now with the improvements. I was able to get a historic masonry contractor to the site. The company that did the restoration work in the front of Town Hall, they specialize in historic masonry restoration. So I did bring them up to White Cliffs to take a look at the chimney. They gave me some thoughts and opinions. That's one of the topics I think that John wants to address later this morning. So that's an update on where we are with the projects.
All good news, Scott. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Norm.
Yeah, I know if I may through the chair, just if you know the bid process that we went through, we saw some rather extraordinary bids for this work. And by the way things worked out and having carpenters very hungry for work during the shutdown, we were able to get some things done very reasonably, so that you have one carpenter working in his garage putting these crates together at a fraction of the quotes. I mean, I think some of this work we were looking at literally like 10 times the cost. And so things have, again, it's taken an incredible amount of legwork on the part of Scott to kind of keep pushing and getting this stuff out in front of some of our local contractors, but very successful. The crates, as you can see in the update that was emailed this morning, the crates look fantastic. They're secured, they're locked, they're on casters. Everything is being stored. All the fixtures are being stored in accordance with the specifications that were put together by the architect originally. So this is all positive work. And that back dormer as well, getting that buttoned up and the sealing off of the building, as Scott said, that work is all engaged and will be completed shortly. So just to remind everybody, when you go back and you look at the original recommendations from the architect about the things that they wanted to see done or recommended that we spend money on to secure the building envelope, all those things have or will be completed with the exception of the chimney masonry repair work. That's not necessarily infiltrating water into the building, but the chimney, as you know, is compromised and does need to be fully rebuilt, essentially from the roof line up. So we can talk about that in a moment, but we're in a good position where we do have some funds remaining, and we'll talk about that on the next budget item. I'm sorry, the next agenda item. And we need to kind of figure out how we're mapping out moving forward at this point and how it all interplays with wrapping up the reuse study and what the next steps are. But this is all very positive work. And again, as you look at the memo that was distributed this morning, the work looks great, and the building is secure. Keeping in mind, the other thing the architects recommended was demolition of the two small additions. That was prohibitively costly, so that could not be fit into our budget. And so the recommendation then was to seal off those additions from the balance of the building. That's the work that Scott just spoke to that will take place. It's not a permanent measure, but it's an important step in terms of isolating the water infiltration on those smaller additions and trying to keep the building envelope secure. So we made some great progress during this, despite the fact the committee hasn't been meeting. The staff has continued to work and make some great progress on these items. So very pleased to be able to report that to the committee today. So thank you.
John, just to add to your point about the bidding, I think we hit the sweet spot because now that, we're several months into the pandemic, a lot of contractors are charging, a 20% COVID premium, which we were able to avoid. So I think we were fortunate in that regard as well.
Yeah, and again, I can't stress enough the legwork that Scott Charpentier did in chasing down contractors and sort of banging on the door while they were sitting at home with nothing to do and say, hey, we have this. But they and again, they had to meet the specifications of the architect. So the crates, all the work is being done in conformance with the specs and in conjunction with DBVD, our architect. I can't say enough about them. They have been responsive to us throughout this. A lot of back and forth to make sure that the specs were good. And between now and when we meet next, they'll be up there to inspect the work that's been completed and hopefully give you a little bit more of a thorough update from their perspective, making sure that the work on the dormer and the isolation of the old additions from the historic part of the building has been done in accordance with their specifications. But it's all great work, and yeah, we did hit it's an upside at least to the pandemic. So,
hey John, did the architects do periodic inspections or just at the final?
Well, the work that was done, remember now, this is the crating. So the crating it was done in accordance with their specs, and Scott's been out there, lots of pictures. The dormer work is ongoing, and so they'll be out. I believe we're scheduling them to come out to look at that work while it's being completed. And they, of course, were out and inspecting while the roof work was being done. So that's what'll take place between now and your next meeting is they're going to go out and look at this work that we've been able to contract. It takes time, to put the bid specs together, to go out, get the contract squared away, and then get the work scheduled. So again, it's been a good process, and there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, despite the fact that the committee hasn't been meeting. So I don't know if anybody has any other questions regarding that work. The other thing is we do have an old building. I know Scott talked about this, but a number of trees through various storms have come down. There are always unexpected expenses when you are maintaining a property. And, when the main service to the building was taken out, and it was literally the electrical service was ripped off the building, we had to install a new electrical service. Stuff is expensive, and it happens. But Scott did proactively work with a tree company to go through, identify any compromised trees. People don't realize when you go up to that property, what you see is a fraction of the land. There's actually quite a bit of land, and the property where the trees have come down and fallen into other people's yards. These are 200-year-old oak trees that, frankly, I don't think I wasn't clear that they were on the town's property. But so we've addressed that. But again, it's been at a considerable expense. So.
We're going to move on to the budget.
Sure. I'm going to screen share with you guys. Can everybody see the budget up on the screen?
Yep.
I'm going to walk you through, again, this is a high level update of kind of where we are. And I know it's been a while, so I want to walk you through kind of how we got to where we are, and then we can discuss, where do we go from here? So the original town meeting appropriation was the $2.4 million. And then we have incurred expenses to date. We have the acquisition costs. Now, remember, we were paying, as part of the purchase and sale agreement, $5,000 a month, essentially in rent, until we could close on the building. That was part of the deal. So the acquisition expenses include that, the purchase price, legal expenses, and then our environmental consultant that was up there to oversee the remediation work that took place and to protect the town's interests. So that's about $1.84 million. Then you have been paying property insurance, and it's roughly about $15,000 a year for basic insurance on that building, and that's only covering essentially demolition in the event that something happens to the place. It's not insured for replacement costs. We could not get somebody to write replacement cost insurance on a vacant commercial building in that state. But essentially every year we have that cost of about $15,000. Then we have the utilities, electric, phone, alarms. We put a security system in up there that has eliminated basically all vandalism and issues up at that site. Its motion sensor goes directly to dispatch. Anybody who walks on that property, they should be waving to the dispatcher, because immediately they're notified and a police officer is dispatched. So after catching a couple of people up there with not the best of intent, I think that has made its way through all the various urban spelunking websites, and we haven't had any issues of vandalism or trespassing up there since. The architectural services, the 120,000 roughly, that is to date for DBVW to get us through phases 1, 2, and 3, which includes delivering of the final report, which will take place at your next meeting. So they essentially are completed unless we choose to engage them to do something else. The roof replacement for $94,100, Scott just spoke to that. That work is complete. The creating of the historic fixtures, which I think in the original bids were they were astronomical. They wanted like $16,000 to $20,000 to create this stuff. That now is complete, and we've paid it. That was $4,800 in its final form. And then, as you know, we are paying for the storage of the historic fixtures, and that's about $2,400 a month. A year, $200 a month at Masad in Worcester. So that's where these crated, secured, locked fixtures are being stored, and will continue to be. So essentially, we've expended about 2.18 million of the original appropriation, leaving for us approximately $216,000 in change. So as we kind of work our way down, we know in upcoming fiscal year 2021, the fiscal year we're in right now, we have recurring expenses just to maintain this building. And it's about $25,000, $26,000 a year. Property insurance is the big piece of it. Then you have utilities, the storage expenses for the historic fixtures. And that does not include any of these unexpected, the tree falls down, the electrical service gets pulled off, the tree work that's happened. We've had some alarm issues up there in terms of fire alarm, as Scott mentioned. He's meeting with contractors next week to go through and see if that alarm can be patched together on a temporary basis. But just the basic operating expenses to maintain the building is at least $26,000 a year. So we know those expenses are coming forward in fiscal 2021. Scott mentioned the sealing off of the additions and the repair of the dormer. So that work is ongoing. We haven't paid it yet because it's in process, but we know the contract will be approximately $10,000. Invariably, when they get in there, they'll find something additional work, just like when we did the roof work. There's an anticipation there's some wood that needs to be replaced or some other related things. When you're working on a historic building like this, it's like that children's story. If you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to want a glass of milk. If he has a glass of milk, he's going to need a napkin. Everything you do, it's difficult to pick a limit to stop at. But right now, the sealing off of the additions, repair of the dormer is just under $10,000. So we know we've committed to approximately another $34,000 roughly of known expenses. There will be, I can't say this enough, there will be unknown expenses every month and year that we hold the building. There will be things that will go wrong and issues that will come up that we'll have to address. But right now, these are the known expenses that we have to encumber. So then you drop down to the line that says potential expenses to be determined. The south chimney repair, we have a solid bid or quote of about $100,000, and then there's about $10,000 of additional architectural and project oversight expenses built in there. We need to maintain, we can't spend the budget down to nothing. We need to maintain some sort of a contingency for the building's operation as a whole for tree falling, natural disasters, storm, anything that, vandalism, anything that might take place up there. We've got fire alarm repair expenses we're not sure of. We also, if you recall, we reduced the scope of the phase 3 from the architectural services to get to the things that had to get done, given these other significant expenses that we were anticipating for the roof and the additional work. So whether or not we engage or use the architect for any additional services is unknown at this point. And then again, these are sort of the expenses that we've identified for the upcoming fiscal year 2021. If we don't seek additional funding at town meeting, we need to plan to maintain the building for these costs that will recur. So having said all of that, at this point in time, we have a remaining balance of approximately $181,000. So that brings us back to having the discussion about the south chimney repair. So of all the recommended actions of the architect, the only thing that we have not been able to address, or we haven't addressed, is repair of that chimney. And that, as I said, is about $110,000. So, we need to kind of discuss and think about what is our plan. And I don't anticipate that we need to do this today, but I think the committee needs to think about it. I think we need to get a little bit of additional feedback from the architect and the consultant with regard to the reuse plan and the timing of that and the implementation of that. Because I'm not clear right now is if we're going to need assistance from additional consultants or from somebody to help market the place, or so those are additional discussions that need to take place. So if we can, I think after we have that discussion, we have a better sense from the architect about the reuse plan and how that plays in and what we may or may not need for resources. Then we can circle back and discuss whether or not that chimney repair can get done under the existing budget, because part of the question is going to be upcoming town meeting, April of 2021. What are we going to be requesting? Are we going to have a plan? Are we going to market this thing? I think all those pieces kind of need to come together so that we know really what do we have left for a budget. If there isn't an appetite to go back to town meeting to ask for additional funds, then more of this money will need to be held aside for overhead and operating and maintenance costs for the building until such time as a solution is found or additional appropriations are made. So we're in actually a fairly good position right now. I think, again, just remember the roof replacement bids. I mean, we had bids that came in at $1 million. The lowest bid for the work that we've completed now, the lowest bid was just under $500,000, I believe, 460 or 480,000. And so we've been able to get that work done at a fraction of that price through a lot of extra legwork and a lot of extra just effort and circumstances. So we have some additional options, I think, open to us moving forward. But really the big question is going to be the timeline for the reuse plan, what resources will be needed to implement whatever the architect and their consultant recommend. And then we need to map out a critical timeline and a budget that matches what do we want to achieve. One of the things I've asked the architect to do, given the time that has gone by, which may influence the decision of this committee, is to go back out and take a look at that chimney. It's gone through another freeze thaw cycle, and to get a sense from them whether or not it can wait any longer or it really needs to be done immediately. So we'll get that feedback at your next meeting as well. So certainly can answer any questions anybody has with regard to the budget. But as I said, I think we've accomplished quite a bit of work at a good price point. And I think that has allowed us to have some additional options for discussion moving forward. So certainly can answer any questions that anybody may have.
Excuse me, I have one. It's how is the feasibility study influencing the timing on the mansion? 'Cause
What feasibility study?
the feasibility study in regards to the town hall options.
Not influencing it at all. This is a separate process from that, although they certainly will overlap because, as you know, one of the options that the consultant in this committee agreed to bring forward was to look at a potential municipal reuse up there. But I think they should dovetail based on the timeline we're looking at now, Norm. I think they would dovetail perfectly.
Okay, that's because when would you expect the feasibility study to be completed? Before the April 2021 town meeting?
So you're referring, let's just so for the folks at home, so nobody gets confused,
Okay,
because
good.
this is the feasibility study for the town offices. So we're going to try to get that going. I don't have a clear timeline on that right now. Remember now, the old town hall at 4 West Main Street comes back to the town, or is an option for the town to take back in May of 2022. So we're gonna begin our work. One of the things that we're struggling with right now, and is just we have a lot of committees and a lot of projects. We have a backlog of projects, including this one, the fire station that needs to get up and going again, and then we have the new appropriations for things like the town hall feasibility study that were just approved at town meeting, which of course was delayed by 3 months. So we're still trying to get the sequencing of all of these projects down. I'm not sure. I don't know that we'll be back in the spring for at the upcoming town meeting, specifically with a big building project for town offices. We need to kind of play this out. And again, if 4 West Main Street is ultimately the option, we may or may not have access to that building in next year anyway. The thing is, we need to get that. We need to know where we're going and have basic information so that we can have an informed discussion and a process as a community by which we decide what are our options and where do we want to go. Now, whether or not we can do that and meet an April town meeting of 2021, I can't tell you that right now.
Okay, it's just that I know that there's going to be an interaction between the feasibility study and White Cliffs. I was just trying to, your answer is what I was looking for.
Yeah, so the good news is, I think we're going to be wrapping up the feasibility study and the reuse, at least the option piece of the reuse for this project over the next month or so. And then we start to look at, okay, so how does this information inform, in part, the feasibility study for the town hall? So this will just, we'll have this information, and then we'll need to get information about the existing building we're in and the 4 West Main Street, and then pull it all together. So I don't have one of the things that we would do once we get an architect on board to do that is to create a critical time path, timetable to know how this all is going to play out and what our intentions will be. Right now, we just need to focus on getting this done, obviously.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. I guess the next thing is, where are we on the reuse report by the architects, and getting a chance to look at that and setting the next meeting?
So Eric Bush is the primary consultant on that. So his availability has been difficult. I've got some positive news for Nelia, who is the architect and the project manager on this. She is coming off maternity leave on September 21st. So I put out a bunch of dates to the architect and the consultant. And unfortunately, at least during the daytime, the consultant's availability is very limited. But one date that worked for Martha, staff here, and the architect was, pardon me, give me 1 second. Piece of paper I needed was under my computer. I didn't want to take you for a crazy ride just then. So the date that we were looking at, that everybody, all the consultants are available, was September 22nd at 10 a.m. So I'm really hoping that that date and time works for everybody.
Good for me.
I can do that.
Good for me.
Good for me.
Oh, that's wonderful. I know it's tough when you're trying to coordinate all these people and you only have one date that works, but I gave them like 5 or 6 dates, and unfortunately, it was trouble getting everybody forward. So it looks like September 22nd at 10 a.m. will be our next meeting. That primary focus of that agenda and that whole meeting will be the architect and the consultant providing their presentation with regard to the reuse study. So one of the questions I have for folks is, I'm anticipating this is going to be a significant document. I would offer this to folks if you would like us to print a copy for you. I mean, it's going to be substantial. We can print a copy for you and make it available for pickup, or try to do it in either a zip file or like a Dropbox kind of a thing for folks. So I'm not sure what people would prefer.
I'm fine with digital.
Digital works for me.
I'm old
I
school. I
printed.
like paper.
Okay, so I got Norm and Julian who would like a paper copy. I'm a paper copy too. I can't read all that kind of without. I like to write notes and stuff as well. Okay, so we'll print 2 paper copies for pickup. I need to coordinate this with the architect as well. I know Martha is out of the office at the moment, and then I will work with them to get an appropriate way for folks to pull it down digitally as well. It's too big just to do as an attachment email, but obviously there are a number of ways to get these types of documents out. So I'll work with the architect to do that, and we'll try to get that out to you at the beginning of next week, so folks have ample time to review it prior to the meeting.
Just refresh my memory again. Exactly what will we be receiving? Is this just focusing on reuse, or is this a more broader report?
This should be the draft of the entire report. So it'll have a lot of the historic information, the work that's been done, and then the culminates with the consultant who did the reuse analysis. As you remember, last time we met, they were going to go back, look at the 3 primary choices that the committee identified, and do some pro forma work on to see how that would look budgetarily. And that's the work that he's completed. That will be the focus of the presentation, but the report will bring everything that they've done for the town to date, including just bringing all the historic information and data that's been collected over the last year of working on the project, bringing it all together. So the report is substantial, but we will focus primarily on the reuse options and the economics of those reuse options at the next meeting. That's why it's critical that Eric Bush, who did that analysis, who is the sub-consultant for the architect, be at your next meeting. He'll be the one presenting these options.
Got it.
Okay.
Thanks.
John, I can definitely attend the meeting virtually. I may be passenger in transit that day. So I might not be on the screen much, but I will review the report and definitely dial in at a minimum.
Okay, excellent.
I have a question. Is this report something that could go up on the White Cliffs website or on the town website for people to?
When the committee has completed its review, yes, that would be exactly what we would do. Again, it is in draft form. The committee may have some feedback, may ask for some modifications or additional information. When it's complete, absolutely, we would get it up onto the town's website.
Right.
Yep. All right. Those are the things that I have. So I think we're moving forward and in a good time frame right now. This is the time of the year when we typically want to be pushing these projects to conclusion. And ideally, as we look forward, what'll happen when we get this information from the consultant and we have our options and we have some of the economics related to those options, then the town, we're going to need to kind of work out how do we move forward then. So do we have to hire a consultant to market the place? Do we issue an RFP? Do we do we need additional funds to move into that next phase? These are all things that we need to discuss and determine how best to move forward. And again, we're in relatively good shape because we do have that pool of money. The big thing that will sway whether or not we need to potentially seek additional funding at next year's town meeting is going to be whether or not, in my opinion, we proceed with the chimney repair. But it's looking like that chimney, if we can, really ought to be repaired. But I'm not sure, Scott, maybe you can speak to this at this point in time, given the bidding cycle, whether or not that's something that can be accomplished at this, prior to winter setting in this time regardless. So I'm not sure if that's even feasible.
No, we would likely bid it out after the holidays, try to get competitive bids from hungry contractors and allow them to perform the work in the spring. It's too late in the year right now for outdoor masonry work, especially on historic structure where there's a lot of unknowns.
So that's something to take into consideration. So we need to kind of pull all these individual pieces together and map out as we complete the work that was originally given to this committee as a charge. We really don't have a plan. Once we complete this feasibility and reuse study and we've made the repairs and we've secured the building, we now kind of need to map out the next phase. And we don't really have, that's going to take some discussion and some additional information. Okay.
Is there anything else from anybody?
I just have one question about the study itself. They are not required to provide any type of schematic design with that because the feasibility is focused on reuse, not solutions. Is that true?
Well, they have some conceptual, we've had presented to us some conceptual reuse designs.
Mm-hmm.
Conceptual, they really haven't gone into schematic at all.
Okay.
Again, it's a continuum, as you know, but we've had presentations by them saying, look, if it was an event center, this is roughly the building massing you would need. This is roughly where it would be located. So I would imagine that some of that would be in the report, some of the conceptual options for us. But unless, I think until we identify a specific route that we want to go through, you don't want to be spending architectural fees that on a schematic design for the what you want to do until you kind of get a little closer.
Okay, I'm just asking because the state agencies are requiring that now with every study.
Mm-hmm.
Probably does not apply it in the municipal.
I mean, they have the plans of the historic part of the building. I'm not sure. Are you referring to the historic part of the building, the scans and all of that? That would all be in there.
Yeah, and I mean, they've done CDs for quite a bit of it already because
right.
It was bid. So I just didn't know if there was, like, if we're looking at different solutions and then there's a schematic for a given solution, but it may not involve architects at all. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much detail we're going to get on that. We did have some, we did at the last meeting, albeit a while ago, have they showed us some options in terms of conceptually what it would look like if it was a municipal use versus a event. So I'm not sure the level of detail that we'll get on.
Makes sense.
But we will get a considerable amount of detail on the historic portion of the building, all the scans and the floor plans of that building, which is all a lot of detail that we have not had, to date. So that's excellent for us moving forward, regardless of what option is chosen. Okay. Excellent. Through the chair, if anybody has any other questions.
I have a question. So before our next meeting, did you indicate that the architects will be coming on site to look at the chimney one more time?
Yes. Well, they're coming out to go back to Tom's question of, as the work is being done, have the architects been inspecting it? And so they're coming out primarily to look at the dormer work that is being done. So that work is in progress, as well as the sealing off of the old additions. And I just asked them if they would take another look at the chimney and let us know their thoughts on that. Just an assessment of whether or not, in their opinion, it's deteriorated further, or if there's any kind of a stopgap measure that we could use, just so we can pick their brains for their thoughts on that.
So just to make this easy for everyone, when they're on site, could you let me know when they're going to be there? It's been 2 years since I've been on the property. I don't know about the other committee members, and I would like to just get a sense of what's going on there in real life, if it's, you know, if it's convenient at that point.
Okay, I'm not sure when they're going to come out. Scott, I don't know if you have.
And I'll try to make myself available at any point.
Julianne, if you're interested in walking the building, and any other member of the committee, because you haven't been in for a while, reach out to me via email. I have keys. I'll alert dispatch that we're going to be walking the property. I have a flashlight. I'd be happy to show
Well,
it
we're
to
not
you.
going in the building, Scott,
No?
for
Okay.
insurance purposes. But if people, if you want to look at the work that's been done on the outside of the building, you want to walk around the back and see the dormer, let me talk to the architect and see where we are on that. But again, if everybody's coming, then we have a meeting. And so we have open meeting law compliance issues and things of that nature. So
it would have to be maximum 2 of us then, if someone else wanted to join this tour.
well, it's not a tour. It's and again, we can give
Okay.
in the packet that you have, we have pictures of the dormer work, just like we've given you photographs of all of the structure. And Julian, we've had this conversation many times. For insurance purposes, nobody who isn't a contractor or a town employee should be in the building and really walking around on the premises. But if you want to go see what the dormer looks like, we can make an arrangement. We're not going in the building at this point. But we certainly can give you also, in the memo that went out to you this morning, there are photographs of the work that are continuing to be done. And again, the architects are there not to interact with us. They're there to do the inspections and interact with the contractor. So.
Okay, I'll arrange something with Scott then. And I would just also like to say, thanks. It was a lot of hard work, obviously, getting all these projects done in the COVID time, and a lot of progress has been made. And thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and again, the credit on the yeoman-like work for the contractors goes to Scott. He's done a great job chasing those folks down. Okay.
All right.
So next
Anything else?
meeting, September
Yep.
22nd, 10 a.m. Excellent. And the consultants will be here, and the architects will be here. So very good.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, excuse me, I'll make a motion that we adjourn today's meeting.
Thank you,
Second.
Norm. Second. All right, roll call. Norm,
Yes.
Julianne,
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
Tom. Tom? Well, we're gonna get a majority vote anyway. I vote aye, so that passes. All right.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye,
Brian.
everybody.